You're a startup founder. You think your product is amazing and feel like more people should be buying, but the road is long and slow. It feels like you're stuck. There's always one thing I ask startup founders. Have you talked to your customers? They almost always say, heck yes, we talk to our customers all the time. But what I find is they're either selling or trying to improve their product. These are not customer-focused conversations. If we can get curious about our customers, then we can uncover critical insights that will help us build to the next round. I'm Anna Firmenov, and welcome to Building with Buyers, a show about startup growth where I'll explore how customers help startups build to the next round.
Live webinar on content repurposing. And I know they say this every time, but I am extra excited about this session because we have a crazy star-studded, I'd even say, I'm going to just lift you guys up before we go, list of expert guests here joining me to talk about content repurposing. So thank you to everyone tuning in. And as we're kind of filing in, feel free, the live chat is open. So feel free to write in there about the kind of content that you're creating. It helps us get a better idea of being able to better answer questions that's actually going to suit the kind of content that you're creating. And I want to actually start off because a lot of you, it might be your first time that you're tuning into a Riverside event or heard about Riverside. So we are an end-to-end content creation platform. You can record and edit your content, get transcripts, make clips. So we're going to be getting to a few of those things today throughout the session, but I'm going to be sending a link soon in the chat for anyone who wants to try out Riverside for the first time. You can try out a free pro trial. I'll send that link pretty soon as you watch along. A little bit of incentive to keep you watching. But as we start, I'll just have you all introduce yourselves. So Ross, I'm going to actually start it off with you.
Awesome. I'll take it. So I've seen a lot of Canadians dropping in the chat. So shout out to Canada. I'm in the house as well from Nova Scotia. We're all cold, trying to stay warm, just like everybody else in the polar vortex. But I run a company called Foundation, which is a content marketing agency. We support B2B brands with content repurposing distribution. Also the author of a book called Create Once, Distribute Forever. That's kind of my mantra, as well as a dad of 3. And I also recently launched a product called Distribution.ai. So super excited to be joined with some of the brilliant minds on this call. So thrilled to be here, excited to chat all things repurposing. It's going to be fun.
Oh, and I forgot to also say, as you're introducing yourselves, I want to hear about what you think is kind of the biggest mistake or misconception that people have when they are repurposing, because we're going to try to correct those misconceptions and mistakes as we go through. So would love to hear what yours is.
I'll start and I'll say I believe the biggest misconception is that repurposing content and thinking that the same thing can live on all the channels the same way, same formats, same style works. It doesn't. The asset that you share on Instagram for a video is going to be very different from the video content that you would share on LinkedIn, or at least the format and the structure, the caption, all of that matters.
That is all the time. Yeah.
I was actually going to say that leads me right into Anna, because we talked about that before. So yeah.
I see that all the time. I see the 6 icons of the social media that the company is on. And then I go check and it's the same posts across all. And then you go check and it's how is it doing? And it's not doing well because every single platform is a different game to play. So yeah, I see that a lot. So I'm Anna Firmenov, founder of Firmenov Marketing Consulting, which is a customer insights and strategy firm. I work with mostly B2B seed startups and turn customer insights into compelling positioning and messaging that specific people care about. And I'm excited because this is perfect. This coincides with my new podcast. I was host of Modern Startup Marketing, 200 plus episodes. And now I have a new show and it's called Building with Buyers. And I just launched the first episode last night, really late last night.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. The aspect of content repurposing that people tend to get wrong, I think that people tend to focus on the repurposing part And that is probably why, Ross, you're seeing that we got to get it on LinkedIn. We got to get it on Insta. We got to get it on X. We got it, right? They focus on the repurposing part more than creating actual valuable and unique content for your target buyer that ties back to business results. And I just want to say that I got this wrong too. We all, I think, make this mistake. If not once, then maybe a couple times, hopefully not more than that. But I got this wrong too. My podcast, Modern Startup Marketing, has over 200 episodes and it grew to top 5% worldwide. But I sell to founders, but my podcast was mostly for marketers. So I just, right, like this podcast has been going on and I'm like, it's great, it's going well, but it's got to tie back to business results, right?
Anna, she's just like us.
What do you know?
Yeah, what do you know? No, it's relatable. I think that what it does is it means that people are trying to create content for all different platforms and it takes so much extra work. And then they're like, oh, I'm not getting the results that I want. Why am I doing all of this extra work? So it creates the cycle of, oh my gosh, repurposing, so much work and you don't get anything back. But actually, if you do it well, you're going to get a ton back. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So Emily, introduce yourself and let us know what you think is kind of the misconception and mistakes that people are making when they're repurposing.
Yeah, for sure. Also, this is not my last name. I'm just updating my name. I'm Emily Kramer. Some people call me Emily. Some people call me Kramer. So just having Emily was not a good idea. Anyway, I am the author of Market One newsletter. Some may call it MKT1. I don't care. I'm also just like you, and I picked a terrible name for my company. But anyway, I digress. I used to lead marketing in a number of companies. I built the marketing teams up from scratch. Asana was the first marketer, 35th employee there. Was there for 4 years, early days, and also built the marketing team up from scratch at Carta. And for 5 years now, I've been advising and writing a newsletter and also investing. Right now, I focus my time on the newsletter, my new podcast, which is coming out on February 5th, I hope, called Dear Marketers. And what else am I trying to say here? Oh, I also advise growth stage heads of marketing. So those three things: investing, advising, and writing and creating things. Ross had such a smooth intro on all the things he did. And he's like, and here's my book. And I'm like, I do some things. So that's me. I'm a little bit messy. And what else? I think it's hard to go last on the content repurposing thing because I think the things that Ross and Anna said resonate. But mine would be actually, I think that you have to start to think about the repurposing before you even make the original content. Back from the time that you plan out the content, if it doesn't go on the channels that you use and the channels where your audience is, to Anna's point, like, don't make the thing in the first place. So if you try to like make something and then later be like, I think I could repurpose this, it's not going to go well or as well as it would have gone if from the time you started, you said, I'm going to make this thing. I think it goes on these channels where my buyers are. Here's how I'm going to adapt the asset. So it needs to start from the beginning. And I think I see this with just distribution planning in general, is people like make the thing and then they're like, oh crap, I need to distribute this. Like, no. Don't make it if you don't know how you're going to distribute it and it's not going to work for the people you're trying to reach.
This leads me really well into my next question. So kind of how I'm forming this webinar is, and we're probably going to end up jumping around, but kind of the before, the during, and the after for repurposing, because I think that that's how you have to think about it. So I want to start, Emily, I'll actually start with you because you were just talking about it, the before. So I think that a lot of people start thinking about repurposing after they have finished creating kind of that foundational piece of content that they're going to repurpose from. How are you thinking about it before? Like, how do you come up with what you are going to, the content that you're going to make based on the idea of repurposing it later?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. There's how I do it. And then there's also how companies that are not like, it's weird because content is my business as well. So it's like a kind of a different process that is similar but different to what I recommend companies do, mainly because like I make money off of things like paid subscribers and things like that. So anyway, I won't go into why it's different because that's not what you asked, but I think there's a few things. I typically repurpose things in a very similar way every time, but that's not always the case. So I know that I am writing a monthly, really long newsletter, like very, very long. My partner calls them term papers because they're like term papers. And so I'm a forever college student, I guess. But I write these really long things. And then I know while I'm creating it that I am going to use that as my primary content for the month. and on LinkedIn and things like that. And so when I'm making the newsletter, I make a lot of diagrams and stuff. And those diagrams wouldn't be worth making if I wasn't also putting them on LinkedIn as kind of individual LinkedIn posts. So it makes some of that stuff worthwhile. So that's kind of my thing. And I'll probably talk about that throughout. But what I tell companies to do is I have this simple marketing brief called the GACS, which is GACCS. And it is kind of, if you're my age and you watched a lot of Nickelodeon as a kid, it's not a coincidence that it's like Nickelodeon GAC. So you put this brief on every piece of content or everything that you're creating beyond content. And it's the same thing. And GAC stands for goals, audience, creative, which is the thing you're making and describing it, and channels, which is your distribution plan. And then the S is stakeholders, if you want it to be, if your team's big enough that you're having a complex stakeholder process. So from the very beginning, before you make anything, I recommend you make a GACS brief, you circulate it, you get alignment on it if there's lots of people involved.
Can you go through that again? What is it? It's G is what?
G is for goals. A is for audience. C is for creative. The other C is for channels. And the S is for stakeholders. And I've written about this and stuff. So it's on there and I have templates for it if you're subscribed to my newsletter and all that good stuff. So by doing this and getting alignment on this up front, it actually becomes quite fast if you get in this process. And it helps you think about all these things. So in the second C, channels, that's really the distribution plan overall. And that's where you should start to think about how you're going to repurpose this. And then that also will probably cause you to have to go back to the other C, just to make it confusing, the creative part, and remap out how you're thinking about what you're actually making with the goal and the audience in mind. So that's how I recommend people do it. I actually used the GACS brief way back when I was leading marketing at Asana a decade ago. And I still have teams use it all the time. And it's super fun when I go into and advise a startup and they're already using it. And it's super valuable just for getting that alignment. So that's my quick trick on it. And yeah, hope that's helpful.
That is definitely helpful. I think I want to actually take it over to Ross and say, how are you? First, so Emily is talking about how newsletter is kind of the basis of her repurposing. What's your basis of repurposing? What's kind of the foundation? And then talk to me about how you plan that foundation.
For us, we operate in a world where we have two sides. We have the clients, and then we have foundation marketing, proper Ross Simmonds brand. When it comes to our clients, oftentimes it changes. Sometimes the foundation is an ebook. Sometimes the foundation is a blog post. Sometimes it's a white paper. Sometimes it's a webinar. It could be a wide range of different things, as long as that asset that they have created is high quality. To a point that Anna made earlier, it's like you can't repurpose and distribute mediocre content and expect results. Like if you promote bad content, you're going to get bad results. If you promote and distribute high quality, valuable content that has what we call channel user fit, like this content is going to align with your users on these different channels, then you're going to have gold. On the Ross Simmonds side and the foundation side, we're oftentimes talking about like an in-depth breakdown or an in-depth resource that we've created, similar to kind of Emily's style with those like long form essays. And then we repackage and repurpose those. So it does differ depending on the actual asset that you start with, but we believe that every asset can be repurposed. Even a simple tweet can be repurposed, or a LinkedIn post that might only be 200 characters can be repurposed. What we would look at is, okay, if you have a micro asset, which would be like a one-off LinkedIn post, and you see that you have content market fit, which means you have an increased level of engagement on that asset, it means you're onto something. And most brands, most businesses, most creators will just say, oh, I had a viral post, that was great, that was fun, and then move on to the next thing. But in reality, you should take a step back and ask yourself, what was in this asset that resonated with people on an emotional level, that drove more shares, more engagement, more comments, got people riled up a bit, that we can turn into a podcast episode, that we could turn into a report, that we could turn into a blog post. So you use these micro assets as a foundational insight to say, we have something here, let's go deeper on it. And then when you go deeper on it, you now have a larger asset that can be repackaged and repurposed and reused into a wide range of different things. So that's the way that we think about it. It's like the asset has to be good. And then if it's good or you see signals, then start building it out from there.
That's such a cool way of thinking about it, because like you think about like the foundational asset, everything kind of goes off of it, but it could be something that's kind of towards the top, really connects with people. And then you kind of bring it back towards the bottom. If you're thinking about it like a pyramid, like the foundational content and these bigger pieces of content, where you could end up repurposing is one part of a LinkedIn post that did really well. And then that can educate your repurposing plan or your content plan for the next cycle. That's really cool. And I'm going to get back to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was not my definition of repurposing prior to that. Like, I think of that as just like, how do you build a content roadmap? Well, you listen to what people are saying. I take the conversations that I have and then write down ideas during those conversations and then try to cull them and make them something, or they come from lots of places. So to me, it's like incorporating feedback into your content roadmap. But I like to think about that as repurposing. That's another way to look at it that I think maybe makes it easier to say, oh, I'm actually going to look at what's working and then build content off of it to say, like, can I repurpose this? So you might have just changed my definition, Ross.
I love it. That's the goal.
I actually want to jump in because we have a question, which is, are we going to talk about actual examples of how to do this or technically how to do this? And this is going to bring me over to you, Anna, because I know that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're using recording as your kind of foundational piece of content.
Yes.
So tell me how that, like, let's go. And I think that a lot of people that are using Riverside are also doing that. They're taking an hour-long recording, a podcast episode, a webinar, and creating a bunch of content from that. So we've talked about kind of the theory, but Anna, I want you to walk me through, how are you doing it?
Yeah. So I recommend this to clients I work with and just anybody that's creating content is figure out where you can create a large amount of it, kind of like Emily with her newsletter. And for me, that's the podcast. And I thought, okay, well, I could sit down and write, or how about I just talk to people, right? And so just getting on the show and inviting a guest and having a conversation, or even just talking through some thoughts that I have, because sometimes I have a 15-minute episode and it'll just be me talking through something by myself. So that became like my pillar content, right? And from there, I can bring it and use clips. So I actually really like to, when I was working on modern startup marketing and growing it, a lot of the folks that found out about it was through video clips that I would post on consistently on LinkedIn. And so I focus on LinkedIn. I focus on the podcast. I'm like a solopreneur. I don't have a lot of folks like creating content for me. So I knew I needed focus. I have a newsletter as well, but my main two content employees, I guess, right, would be LinkedIn and the show. And so the show is the pillar. I really like to sit and just like, before I used to take notes, right? And so I would take notes and then I'd go back and highlight like, ooh, they said this, and then turn that into a clip. And that was an awful experience. And then Riverside, you're amazing because not only are there magic clips, but there are also this feature that I don't think a lot of people know about it. It's called Mark Clip. And so I sit and I listen and I have like a more enjoyable experience versus like taking down notes, right? And I listen for things that are unusual. Like I didn't expect that to come out of this conversation, or like people need to know about this. This is really cool. This is something unique. This is fascinating, right? And I just click Mark Clip and then I go back and create a video clip from it. So it's really about, I know what I need to know enough about my audience too. So just taking a step back, you need to understand like, who are you making this for? And what would they find interesting or unique or something unexpected, right? So do customer research. Like I'm a big proponent of understanding your buyer, doing customer research, understanding where they hang out, what are they listening to, who are they listening to, what are they watching, what are they reading, who's influencing them, all that stuff. Really understand that before you then just sit and listen for that aha moment.
Your comment on marking clips is getting a lot of attention in the chat. And so for anyone who doesn't know, while you're recording on Riverside, you can either press the mark button or you could just press the M on your keyboard. And what it does is it creates these little markers in your timeline. So you can go back through and find all of those key moments. So as I'm recording also, I'm just marking clips because it makes it easier to repurpose later. And actually, I'm just going to share really quick because you shared with me a picture of one of your discussions that you had, and like this is what her timeline looks like. It's like all of those little dots are like places where she marked a clip.
There was a lot of good nuggets. You could see my little circle. There are a lot of good nuggets that we talked about. And so then I have like 20, 25 clips easy because
Are you making clips for each?
Yeah, for this one 50-minute recording, I have like 25 clips because there were a lot of aha moments. It was a great guest. So, but you do need to know, what are you looking for? And so it's not just sitting back and listening. You're being active, but it's not like scribbling notes or typing notes anymore. It's a different kind of being active.
I think that that's one of the great parts about when you're podcasting and when you're recording is like this active listening that you have to do, because that's, I think, how you get those aha moments. Even letting your guest kind of have that pause or something like that, that can create those moments where people can actually jump in and almost have a candid moment. They want to fill that little pause there. So it creates those little aha moments. But I want to actually talk about, so technically, you can make a newsletter and turn it into a blog post and turn it into social clips. Like, that's a lot to do. And I know that there are ways to kind of automate the process so that it doesn't actually feel like once you record or once you write the newsletter, it's like, oh my gosh, I have a whole other job to do now. So Ross, maybe you want to jump in and talk about which tools are you using, which automations. Tell me about like how you're mapping it out in your calendar.
Yeah, happy to. So I've got a little slide that I'll share that gives a glimpse into some of the processes that I've used in the past. And hopefully this will be tactical enough to give some folks the insight into the approach.
We love slides.
When we start with that main asset, let's say you're creating a piece of content. I love Riverside, major fan. Good company boy here. Riverside, you start to kind of create some great content. You might use Google Docs, Substack, whatever it might be. Then you can also leverage like an actual AI tool like Jasper or copy.ai to like turn any of that video content into like a longer form blog post, etc. So what I like to say is you use your content to create content that can be used to create more content. So if you have that main episode or podcast, out of that should be a bunch of different blog posts. And you might be able to essentially upload the transcript to a tool like Jasper or even distribution.ai and use that to create a series of different blog posts, breaking down different ideas. From that, what we like to use is everything from ChatGPT to Canva to automate the development, micro content assets to kind of take these even further. Canva is great for creating visuals and graphics. And if you are ever looking for like a tool to leverage to create like frameworks that are incorporated in your piece, I'm a big fan of Canva as well. One thing that we've been toying with recently that I think is going to have a pro and a con in the industry, but is HeyGen and 11 Labs. So essentially you can upload a synthetic version of yourself, which creates a deep fake version of you talking about the content that you just created. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find like a video of me talking about generative engine optimization, but it's not actually me. Like I never said those words. My AI version of Ross went out and like said those words in the script we created and then uploaded and then used 11 Labs to create a replication of my voice. I showed this video to my mom to see if like she could tell the difference and she couldn't. So it's kind of freaky and weird that that's like the reality of the world that we live in today. But like you can create these micro vertical videos based off of that today. I'm not saying go and do that, but it is a possibility. Then you can develop more infographics and then all of these things could become more things. So if I've created out of a report, a graphic or a chart, I should be sponsoring Emily's newsletter and asking, hey, I don't know if Emily takes sponsorships.
I do.
You do? Cool. Another shameless plug. Great
but we're
company.
full. We're full for like,
so
for like 4 years.
Yeah, no. 4 years, 2030. But like you take that asset, if it's a great visual and you're like, hey, Emily, your team, can we include this graphic in our sponsorship? It generated a lot of engagement on LinkedIn. It's probably going to resonate with your audience there too. So you have that type of engagement. You can trickle it all through. And again, like you can leverage all of these different tools to really put this on autopilot in many ways. Like you can use vidIQ to optimize any YouTube video now to really make sure that the content that you're uploading is optimized for search, which I still believe is a major opportunity for folks. But yeah, like this would be the playbook that I would run if I was doing it. Another fun thing that I just recently started to toy with is this tool called Suno. I don't know if anybody has heard of Suno. I'll drop it in the chat, but you can create like songs around things that are happening. So I created a quick song about this webinar session and some of the listeners can check that link out. I literally made this 2 minutes ago And I think it's pretty good. I haven't listened to it.
You wrote us a song, Ross?
I didn't write the song. AI did, but it's all in there. So check it out. Let me know if it's any good. And if it's trash, then just blame AI. Don't blame me. But yeah, there's some wild things that are possible today.
I think there's one thing that you showed in that visual that was just like new assets, like all sorts of different ones. And I think, Emily, I also remember you had this really colorful diagram of all
They're always colorful.
They're always colorful, but like this one was extremely colorful. It was like,
too colorful for Anna.
10 colors. Yeah. But it was just like your blog post doesn't have to look like a blog post, right?
Yeah.
It could look like something completely, it could be an interview. It could be a calculator. It could be. So I think one of the things I was going to say was like experiment with trying different forms of content and don't just like pigeonhole yourself into one form. Don't pigeonhole yourself with a 50-minute podcast episode. Do a 15-minute just by yourself talking about some topic that's on your mind. Try it. Do a 2-minute one. I would do like a quick like TikTok video, post it on LinkedIn, and then add it to my podcast. And it was 2 minutes. And guess what? People listen to the whole entire thing because it's just 2 minutes. So that could be like a Friday bonus episode, right? Just testing different things and seeing how do they work? Do people like them? Do they listen to it? Do they look at it? That's important too.
Either of you seeing like a certain type of format work or drive better results right now? Like what's working in your worlds?
Well, first of all, LinkedIn is really funky right now, by the way, just in case anyone's wondering. We're all nodding. The creators are talking about it. LinkedIn's been really funky, and like the things that used to work kind of don't work, and you have to kind of play around and be willing and ready to change sort of the exact format, like experiment with video versus text only versus images. And sometimes what worked last week doesn't work anymore. And the same has always been true across other channels as well. I think it's just incredibly obvious on LinkedIn, maybe more so in other ways. So to Anna's point, like continually experimenting and not getting stuck in your ways is really important. I think it's much easier for creators who don't have big teams or even teams of one to do that. I think when you get a big team, what I see when people have big teams is they get very stuck in their ways because you have processes and handoffs and ways that things work. And so you're less nimble. And so as much as you can kind of like be nimble, like a one-person marketing team, that's one of the advantages of being a one-person marketing team. I've been there. Or a one-person creator, like is that nimbleness. And so you're trying to recreate that even if you're on a big team. But for me, I think I'm nimble in how I like repurpose, but my newsletters have sort of stayed largely the same. And it's actually what people tell you not to do. They're incredibly long. I have a monthly cadence, not a weekly cadence, all of these things, but it's what my audience expects and it makes it different. So you don't need to follow the crowd. In fact, you shouldn't necessarily on some of these things, to Anna's point. So sometimes with algorithmic things like LinkedIn, you kind of have to follow what's working there and what's not working. But for your core assets and the things that you're making and really owning, get creative, break the mold. That's going to stand out more. So you have to differentiate on what you're making in marketing. I think people think my product has to be differentiated. Well, your marketing has to be differentiated too.
I completely agree. And actually, Emily, I know that you wanted to share your process. So if you're willing to kind of open up the way that you are creating your content and maybe the flow that you're working on, I'd love to be able to see that.
So this is less my process, but I want to talk about what I actually did. Well, it's my process for one specific thing. So back in December, I hosted my third, what I call a Market One showcase, which is where a number of companies, including Riverside in December, come and demo their product. It's not salesy. We'd actually say, don't have someone from sales do it. Have your founder or marketer or some community manager come and demo your product and focus on a marketing use case. And so we did this in December, and this drives so much content for me. So you can see here, I had the event on Luma. I have some LinkedIn posts around it. I have LinkedIn posts from the people that are participating. This is all the before the event, LinkedIn posts promoting it, promotions from actual guests. And then I have the actual event. We recorded it in Riverside. That event then became a video newsletter on Substack. This is a screenshot from Substack of a video that was made in Riverside. And then afterwards, I have tons of clips. I'm doing clips for each company. I'm also doing clips for different themes and just some general summary posts from me. And then when I actually share the clip of, say, Riverside, there's Stephen from Riverside over here, then I tell the company in advance so they can share that clip too. So that's kind of what it looks like. But this actually maps to how I think about content overall. I do one or two big things a month. And usually that's a newsletter. In this case, the event drove the newsletter. And then from there, my primary LinkedIn focus for the month is that thing. So I'm mainly talking about one main topic. So in December, it was all about the showcase, the companies in the showcase. And I use that to drive the calendar. And then I also sprinkle in content from the past and repurpose content from the past in the mix during that month as well, which is what I have down at the bottom. And so I really use this to keep a focus for myself and to make it so much easier when I have to post on LinkedIn 3 or 4 times a week to know what I'm going to write about. Because I just am like, my focus this month is this. And it really helps. And so I'll do a pre-post on LinkedIn talking about the topic and asking questions about the topic before I do the post or the event. I'll do after posts. If there's guests involved, I'll have them help. I'll then make a paid asset for my paid newsletter subscribers based on that thing. And this continues out for a month, if not longer. So in the example of the showcase, it's about a 7 or 8 week period where like the main thing I'm pushing are things from the showcase. So I don't know, that's how it works for me, and kind of what it looks like with the pink and the yellow being the big things, and everything around it for more than a month is around this.
It's gold. I love it.
Yeah, I would love to be able to share these with everyone who signed up via email later when I send it out. Yeah. And I also think just a few tips that we are using at Riverside. So one of the things that you can do, and I'm just going to drop the link. This is just like super accessible for people who don't have teams and want to take their recorded content and make a bunch of different assets out of it, but need kind of a start. So what I always do after every single webinar that we have, I take the transcript that's made in Riverside and I copy it and put it into, and I'm putting it in the chat, this prompt splitter, because then I don't have to pay for ChatGPT Plus, because it splits it. It splits like your entire transcript into chunks that are just long enough so that ChatGPT can use it. Because we all know how annoying it is to paste in something and it says too many characters. So this really chops it up so that you're able to feed it one, like you copy one part, then the next part. And then you can kind of say into that, like, create for me a LinkedIn post out of this. Create for me a blog post out of this. I'm not saying to use exactly what it's telling you from ChatGPT, because we all know that it can sound a bit robotic. But for me, it just starts getting that kind of idea flow going. I could say, write a social media plan for me for the next month based off of this transcript. And I'm not going to use every single thing that it recommends. But I will be like, oh, that's a really cool, like a behind the scenes video. I could just really quickly take a picture of my setup and then using it for those kinds of purposes. As far as then creating video content from it, of course, if you use Magic Clips, it'll AI clip the video that you created and turn it into these kinds of engaging clips for social media that then you can go in and put your captions on, change the background, make it look exactly as you want it. But I love to do a mix of written and video, and maybe one will work better than the other, but that's even important for me to know. Like, did this video connect more with people? Did this post, did it actually work better in a post? And it can say pretty similar things, those two things. But one person's going to watch the video, another person's going to read through that post. Yeah, Anna, you seem like you want to jump in.
We just talked about how like LinkedIn is being all funky and people are kind of upset with LinkedIn and impressions are down, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there will be ups and downs and algorithms will change. But as long as you focus on what it matters, which is, again, who are you making this content for? Do you know enough about them? Like, do your customer research. And do you know enough to be like, I know what those aha moments will be for them. I know what they will find unique and valuable with my content. That doesn't change. That stays the same no matter what the algorithm does. And so then it's about then testing into like, okay, well, should I do more videos? Should I try this type of video clip? Should I do the format change to this? Should I just do a couple sentences and see if that works? Should I do a picture, a GIF or whatever, right? It becomes more about testing that, but the core doesn't waver. It stays the same.
On that note, let's talk through like really practically, how do you find out about your audience? And I know that for a lot of you, like you have a large audience, so you have a lot of people that you're able to kind of take information from, comments, seeing what works. But for somebody that's maybe not like, that's trying to build their following, that's why they're trying to repurpose, to get more people to see the work that they're doing. What are some practical tips that you can use, that they can use to get to know who their audience is? Ross, if you want to jump in with this one.
Sure. So the number one thing that I recommend is to go where your people are and find like the channels of the internet in which they're spending time. For some people, that might be a certain Slack group, that might be a private community or a subscription on Facebook groups or something like that. It might be a paid Patreon community, a school with a K, like all of those types of things. And then when you get in there, what you really need to do is like understand the types of content and the stories that they're resonating within there. Like one of my favorite places to go is Reddit to better understand communities and like people who I want to connect with. And I'll go into a subreddit and I will like search for a client's domain. I'll search for content that is relevant to a certain audience and then look and see like, okay, where is that content showing up? So if I see that HubSpot is showing up in Today I Learned, or if content is showing up in a certain subreddit, then I'll double click on that and go a little bit deeper to see like, who are those people? Like who's in this subreddit? For example, if I'm targeting entrepreneurs, there's a subreddit called Our Entrepreneur. I would go into that community, sort the content by top posts, and then I would analyze the last 50 posts that generated the most comments, most engagement, and use that to inform the stories that I give back to this community in the future. I would do that exact same thing in every single niche. If I'm talking to MSPs, there happens to be a subreddit called MSPs, and I would go in and I'd do the same thing. If I'm talking to electricians, there's an electrician subreddit, I'd do the same thing. If I'm talking to coffee shop owners, same thing. Maybe they're not on Reddit though, right? So in that case, I'd go to Facebook, I'd find a Facebook group, I'd join that Facebook group, and then I'd analyze all of the posts that got those people talking. And then I would use that as insight into the types of content that I should be creating because this is what they care about. And when you have that insight that these are the stories these people care about, there's no world in which you shouldn't be able to create pieces that are actually valuable because you can see what questions they're asking that have all kinds of questions and people complaining and saying, this is broken and I hate this, I'm really struggling with this. Okay, there's your content calendar, folks. You now know what the problems are. And then you go in and you give folks that content time and time again, and that's how you win. And to this question, if it's in my book, let's break that down in there too.
Yes,
nice.
Go get Ross's book. All right. Anyway, I wanted to say that I think what's interesting about what you're saying, which is so true, like, how did I get way better at doing LinkedIn stuff? Well, I spent way too much time on LinkedIn, but like, that's kind of what you have to do wherever it is. And marketers a lot of them are on LinkedIn. But the thing that's interesting here is like, when you think about SEO, people know, look at the articles that rank at the top, mirror what they're doing. I mean, hopefully you know this, create articles that are similar, look at what's working, but obviously put your own angle on it and add value with it and all of those things. A very similar thing works for any channel you're using. It's a little bit different, but like, look at what's working, add your spin, add your unique take, differentiate it a little, but look what's working. And so it's like, take those practices that we have such processes and rules of thumb for doing SEO in a great way, but you can do those same things in other places. And it seems so obvious when Ross puts it like he does, but like, use that same rigor on every channel that you're doing and you'll have a lot more success. I think we put so much rigor into some channels, and then for things like social community stuff, we're like, there's no rigor that can be applied here. Like, there is rigor.
It's true. It's like, if I'm going to launch a Substack, I'm going to go and study the best Substacks and see what type of content is one generating the most links, because that's a signal to me that, oh, people outside of their world is linking to this content, so it's probably valuable. Or I'm going to use a tool like BuzzSumo, which tracks like social shares on content. And I'm going to plug in a domain and see like which content got the most shares on Facebook or LinkedIn or Reddit or X or whatever. And then that's going to tell me this is content that is worth sharing. And then you use that to, again, get clarity on the types of stories you should be creating. And then ultimately, as we are all talking about, repurposing. Like, if you have great content, repurpose it.
John has jumped in and just said that, not for the people in the chat, that they're not all kind of focused on selling. Some of them are looking to increase their audience so that they can get ad dollars and such, because they're selling the content itself, not a product service. But I do want to be clear that a lot of the things that we're talking about here still speak to that, in the way that, like, if you are going into, let's say, somebody gave an example. I was talking with a creator in the community the other day, and they have a health and fitness podcast. So what they do is they went into health and fitness communities and asked a controversial type of question. What's more important when it comes to health? A good breakfast in the morning or a full night of sleep? And it got a lot of these people talking. Okay, great. That's an episode. Maybe even just clipping that question and putting that online. That is a great clip to get people to like having you have kind of side-by-side grid if you're using video and asking that question and having the expert kind of like about to answer, cut the clip, like have it stop there. That will get people to want to hear more of the conversation. So whether you're trying to sell products or whether you are trying to grow your audience, it's the same kind of thing in the idea that the product is you and your podcast and the content that you're creating. And Anna, I wanted you to jump in on this because I know that you wanted to jump in on
I just want to say I never sell on, even though I have a company, I never sell on my show. That is just, I know people do that. I just do not connect to that at all. I want to learn from, first and foremost, I know that the people listening want to learn. They want to be inspired. They want to hear something that could immediately make an impact in their work. And that's what I want too. That's why I'm making it. Like I'm selfishly making it for myself too. And so who I choose to bring on, what I choose to talk about has nothing to do with getting sales. And so that is very important. I'm also thinking about just audience, right? Audience who's listening to this. I'm not thinking about selling. That's all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah. And there are also things that you can do, like when we're talking about repurposing. So we had talked before about magic clips with Riverside and or creating clips. So I just also want to add that, so that's one part of it. You can create clips, but what else can you be doing with that content? So the other day, for example, one of the webinars that we had done, I could spend my time creating a clip, and I think I did. But on top of that, like the chat that day was on fire. Like people loved what we were sharing. Yep. I took a screenshot of the chat and I made it into a static graphic, and that got so much more engagement than the reel that I did. Try to think about the different like fun ways that you can take something. You could take the chat. You can take a technical moment that you had. Like you can take a video of yourself getting ready to start recording. That could be something that you're repurpose it in. So yeah.
I have a quick thought on this. I think a lot of people, and we've been talking a lot about repurposing for, social channels. But what I actually do as well, I think this was somewhere in my crazy Figma, maybe not. But one thing I do as well is I am doing a number of things to the point before I'm building my audience. My audience helps me get advisees and things like that. But I'm growing a paid subscriber base. I have sponsors. So I'm doing a number of different things. But all of that's to say is like one thing I do is I have paid subscribers on my newsletter. And the main perk is that I have a pretty big template library as well as some extra newsletters and stuff. And the template library, the way that to me is like a kind of repurposing. So I'm making these newsletters on a topic. Let's say I did one recently about marketing budgets. And so I'm writing a newsletter on marketing budgets and efficiency metrics and how to make sure your marketing budget actually works for your company and maps with the strategy and all of these things. I mean, this is more obvious, which is why I chose the example. But then from there, it's like, oh, well, like, it's not really repurposing, but like build on this, which is really what repurposing is. I can build on this and make a template for paid subscribers. That's a budget template. And again, this is a little more obvious, but some of them are less obvious. And you're like, okay, well, how would you practically implement this? If I was someone reading this, how would I practically implement it? What would they do? What do my advisees do? How do I talk about this? And then make that thing. So it's like taking it a step further. But for you all that work at startups, think about this, like my templates for paid subscribers, they would be lead magnets for you, right? They would be things that go that step further, that mid-funnel content. And so think about how can you take this idea further? And a lot of the work I spend time doing with advisees is like, yes, it's the physical, how do I make the clips and all of that stuff, or the tactical doing that. But it's also thinking through, you have this great idea, like milk it, double down on it, pull it out. Do more on that idea. So often I'll ask people like, what's going to move the needle for you this quarter? And they say one thing or one big piece of content. And I'm like, well, then why do you have 25 other things on your content roadmap? If that's your big topic, if that's the thing that's going to get the most traction, stretch it out, break it apart. Think about it like Legos. Take them apart, put it back together, make something new Lego-y. Like think about what you're doing as Legos and focus on rebuilding those Legos off the great idea rather than those 25 other mediocre ideas. And so that's really what I'm trying to do is like make one big topic that's going to work for me for the month, tear it apart, break it up, have a template asset for that, have social assets, use that now to drive topics in my podcast, all of those things. So if you think about your big idea, content ideas as like Legos, it helps me. And I'm only a recent Lego aficionado, so I'm just learning even more about how to apply this metaphor.
I will just really quickly jump in and say that from this conversation, for example, I would create a guide, and I'm probably going to, Ross, if it's okay with you. I'll take what Ross has shared and create a guide. And so if somebody doesn't want to watch a full hour video, you can get Ross's guide. You know, like I would take what Emily shared. I would take what Anna shared and create different step-by-step guides. People want to consume different content different ways. If you have a podcast guest and they talk about 5 different ways that you can change the way, like your mindset around something. I don't know where I was going with this, but put it into a guide, put it into something printable that somebody can print out and use for themselves later without having to refer back to that recording. Make it into a post. Like, I agree with what Emily's saying, that we've been framing this as a lot of social media, but there are so many different ways that you can put on your website or put wherever different assets that are repurposing. They're just not repurposing for the sake of social media. Ross, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to show an example. Like, I've lived this strategy and it's gold. Like back in 2022, I wrote a viral thread on why brands should study Monday.com and their SEO strategies. And then in 2023, it was my most viral podcast episode. And then I wrote a blog post about it and had the team like recreate that blog post in 2024 with new data and new stats. But these pieces all continued to hit, and they continued to drive more awareness, more buzz, more leads, more pipeline, all of those different things to ultimately repackaged again. So like when the podcast went live on Create Like the Greats, we didn't just like press publish on the podcast and call it quits. We then wrote that blog post. We embedded it in that blog post, the actual episode itself. I think I recorded a video with that one as well. And then we like took screenshots from interviews with people. Like, the process continues. So no matter if you are trying to sell, no matter if you're trying to build awareness, no matter if you're trying to generate leads, at the end of the day, I think one of the key pieces that I was a great reminder even for myself that Emily just referenced is like, good content lasts forever. And if you make the mistake of always getting that habit of new, instead of taking a step back and saying, we had gold in 2023, why aren't we still using it? You're leaving greatness just like sitting in the corner collecting dust. So take that old content, do a content audit and see what pieces might have drove better results for you in 2024 and why aren't you talking about them again in 2025? Like, let's get off the hamster wheel of production, start thinking about repurposing the things that already work.
I love that so much. Like, let's not forget that we have data on content that people loved. And if we still have the same target buyer, target audience, like, we should use that again, maybe change it up a little bit, but people won't remember. You know, people don't see your posts, most of them. People won't remember that you posted what you posted 2 months ago. So bring it back, you know, change it up. One other thing I was going to say to that question of how do you find out what your target audience wants to hear about or learn about? Something I did with the Modern Startup Marketing Show is I asked people, I forgot how I asked people. I think I just kind of like asked within the episode and put a survey link in the show notes. Like, please fill this out. I'd love to learn more about what you think. Like, what do you not like about the show? What do you like about the show? Kind of questions like that. And people filled it out. And then I was like, well, leave your email so that I can schedule time with you and talk to you. I think this is missing from companies not talking to their buyers, right? People not talking to their audience that are recording episodes on podcasts. Like, they are there, they are listening, they are gold for you. Just set up a half-hour call. And like, people love to just, if they love your content, if they love your work, they're more than happy to meet with you. And you can ask them questions like, what was your favorite episode? Why was it so great? What am I not talking? What are the questions I haven't been asking that you would love to dive into more? Like, things like that would be so informative to up-level your show.
When I started with community at Riverside, my background's in journalism. So my whole thing is that I came in being like, okay, podcasters, they want to connect because they want to network, because that's what journalism's all about. But then when I was actually speaking with them, they're like, no, I want to connect because I want to learn from people. I want to help. So I want support from other people. I want mentorship. I want to grow as a podcaster. which is so different from journalism. It's like, if I ask somebody like, what's your setup? They're like, absolutely not. My whole job is based off of kind of me having my own thing. So go into it with no assumptions. If somebody DMs you or somebody comments on your post, like, you don't have to have this giant audience. If somebody is commenting on your post, send them a DM. Hey, thanks for the comment. I'd love to hear more about you. What do you do? Like, have a conversation with them, because as Anna's saying, like, those conversations are gold. When I first started being community manager for Riverside, like, I spent the first few months, and I still do it, getting on calls with people and hearing about them. And it really makes you understand when you're having an episode, when you're marking clips, like, is that something that George would think is also cool? Because I spoke with him the other day and I know who he is. I don't know, George.
It's so helpful to have a person. I wanted to add two things to what Anna said. Great ways to get ideas and get topics. It's funny to me, a lot of people have events and they don't put a field that's like, what question do you want to ask in the event beforehand? That's not only useful for the event, that's useful for you forever. So I ask those questions. You can only get to a handful of questions in the actual event, but you can write things about those questions forever. So I actually always do that, even when I already kind of know the questions I'm going to ask, to be honest. It helps shape that event, but it most certainly helps shape things I do after the event. So don't sleep on adding that field and using that. That's an asset. The other thing I wanted to say is, like, I've been obsessed, this was in my diagram, but I've been obsessed with the pre-LinkedIn posts before I make my big long newsletters, my big assets, whatever that is for you. For my main assets, I ask a question in advance. What's your favorite? I'm doing this right now. I just posted something like this on.
I love that you do that.
Yeah. Like, I'll say, like, I wrote something on meetings and marketing cadence and how to run your marketing team this month for my newsletter. And I posted before, what makes you love a marketing meeting? What makes you hate a marketing meeting? I get tons of engagement on these posts. Sometimes people send me their things. They send me templates, and I, of course, credit them if I use them, but they send me things. Like, people sent me, when I asked about budget templates, what's your favorite one? People sent me like 50 of them. I ended up throwing them all away and making my own, but that's because I'm a perfectionist, crazy person. But really, like, the pre-question, nobody does that, but it works super well. So that is now part of my process every time. You'll know what I'm going to write about next month if you start looking at my LinkedIn about 3 weeks before, because I'm going to ask about it.
That was gold, folks. If there's that little mark thing,
Yeah, mark the clip. Mark the clip.
That's it right there.
I just did it.
Thanks, Ross. You had some markable moments too.
That's all right.
So
Oh, there are lots of clips that are being marked in here.
There's one great book that has no affiliation with me, but Pat Flynn has a book called Superfans. It's gold, and it talks about kind of some of the ideas that Emily just dropped. I encourage folks to check it out.
Or even, like, I would just to call out in the chat, we had somebody asking why there aren't the webinars that we've done on long form material, what to do, how to grow. First of all, we have had some, but as Anna was saying, just because you've had it before, it doesn't mean that people see it. One, and two, great note. I'm going to now focus, like, that's my audience. I'm going to be focusing on creating a webinar on long form, how to keep it engaging. These are the kinds of things that, like, even from a live chat, even from a comment, like, you can take those to use them as figuring out who your audience is, what they want to learn about, and creating content. Because any repurposing plan that you create, if it's not built on the foundation of what people want, then you're just repurposing a lot of stuff that people don't want.
It's like building your product. Like, you would never just build it and not ask people, like, hey, what do you think about this?
Some people do. Some people do, Anna, but those products end up pretty terrible. Yeah. I've definitely seen startups. I'm like, you talked to no one before you did this when I'm as an investor. But yes, the point remains. I'm just joking around.
Well, speaking of incredible products, I'm going to drop in the chat here for anyone who's not tried Riverside. You can do a free trial of Pro. Boom. That was a nice. Oh, and I'll also put it on the screen in a second. So you can use that. Hold on. I'll put that in on the screen, but I'll also be sending it after the webinar when I send out the email for all of you that registered. You can try that out. It's a free trial of Pro. And another thing that people are doing lately that I'm seeing is that they are taking live streams like this, or they're live streaming themselves to, one, be able to speak with their community. Like, there's no better way to be able to connect directly in real time with your community than going live. So podcasters are using live streams, marketers, to connect, but also because then you can take that content, repurpose it, and use that as the basis for your repurposing plan. So leads me into my plug. We are actually hosting a live stream marathon where I'm going to be doing this for like 6 hours, guys. It's going to be crazy.
In the middle of the night in your time zone. In the middle of the night.
Yeah. No, yeah. But so if you want to learn live streaming skills, and also we're going to be raising money for a really great cause. We're going to be raising money for youth creators in New York to learn how to tell their stories and ignite social change with DCTV. Everyone who watches, for every view, we're going to be giving $1 to that organization. So it's also really for a great cause. I'll send the link in the email that I send out. I'll put that on screen again. But if you want to learn how to live stream, we're going to be going through every aspect of live streaming with some expert guests. And as Emily pointed out, you can also just watch along to see me slowly like disintegrate into myself if that's more your speed. So yeah, otherwise we've hit the top of the hour. So I really want to say thank you to all of you that have joined in the chat, but all of like the three of you, these have been some really incredible insights. Thank you for sharing your screens and sharing really actionable tips of how everyone here can repurpose their content. And yeah, really appreciate you all in the chat. And thank you all for joining.
We appreciate you, Kendall.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Kendall. You're a great host.
Great host.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Great
Mark
prep.
Clip.
The best host ever, Mark Clip.
MMM. All right. Thank you. See you guys later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Building with Buyers. New episodes drop weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how to turn customer insights into positioning and messaging your buyers will understand. FurmanovMarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.